should they be? Should we work against that divide, or should it be that be changed even?
Well, those are all the questions that we should be asking. Is should we be working against it, and if so, how? And unfortunately, this book does not offer any compelling solutions. He in the end, he has a chapter called "We Marry Our Enemies," and he talks about how past empires...
We marry our enemies.
We marry our enemies. And he talks about how past empires have thrived when the culture encouraged people of different tribes within the empire to intermarry. I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to be the most effective solution, but it's certainly worth considering. But I think that there is another kind of an education that works as part of it, and also one of the 90% issues I talked about in terms of transportation. The whole non-urban culture is entirely dependent on subsidized private motor vehicle use. And these people have this delusion that they are the independent ones, that they're the ones who are not dependent on government, and I drive my car, I don't use public transportation, I'm not using all that subsidized city stuff, and in fact, they're the ones that are most subsidized of all. In fact, if you look at this election, Sarah Palin is, the libertarian and all this anti-government rhetoric, and of course, as most people know, who bother to look, of course, Alaska receives the most per capita government subsidy of any state in the union. Absolutely.
Really? And she parades around with this extreme libertarian attitude that...
Absolutely. In fact, if you want to know...
Do it for yourself. Don't let the government do it for you.
In fact, if you want to know who is it that receives the lowest subsidies of anybody in the entire country, do you know who that is?
Who is that?
The residents of New York City.
The residents of New York City.
They are the least subsidized people in the entire country. In fact, they pay far more to the government than they receive back. So they actually get a negative subsidy.
So they're paying for the urban folks are paying for this non-urban folks' subsidization.
Subsidization, absolutely. Yeah. And so,
you're upsetting a lot of apple carts here, you realize.
Well,
you're making it awful messy.
We're making things messy, but that's sort of what you have to do if you're going to make an omelet. You got to break some eggs. So anyway, if you're going to solve the big sort problem, one thing you have to do is sort of shatter some of these illusions that these people have, that these libertarians, are living some total free existence, free of government, when in fact they are generally the most subsidized of all. I remember when my brother was in college.
That's absolutely marvelous, isn't it?
It is. He was a geology student, and he had to do field work out in Montana and Wyoming, and he'd be driving these government vehicles that were full of bullet holes from people shooting at them because they hate the government. And it's like, of course, the big joke was that none of their jobs would have existed if it weren't for these government subsidies. Government subsidies. I mean, all of their mining wouldn't happen at all if it weren't for the government.
What happened to these people, though, if you taught them and showed them their absolute terrible dependence on being subsidized by the federal government?
Well, that's the experiment I'd like to do, is to see how they would respond. And I have a feeling that their perspective would in fact change if they saw that. Now, the other big piece of the education, in addition to recognizing these government subsidies for their non-urban lifestyle, is the whole Armageddon thinking and their religious views, because in a way you could say, well, that's resistant to education, because faith by definition stands outside of reason. It stands outside of evidence.
Right.
And yet they seem to like to use evidence one way to their advantage. Right now, there is a movie in the theaters that's just come out this week. It's called Religulous with Bill Maher.
Bill Maher, yeah.
Bill Maher, and it is Totally blasphemous.
Have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Have you seen it? Where is it playing?
It's playing right now at Paseo Nuevo. I don't know if it's still
Do you recommend that our viewers take a look at that?
I highly recommend that our viewers take a look at it because it indicates the sorts of things that do and don't work when challenging these people who have these fundamentalist beliefs and these Armageddon beliefs. And the one that I thought turned out to be most compelling from what I saw was being shown that the Jesus myth had been written many times before, going back about 1,000 years. And he gives these examples of Horus and then Mithra. You know, you have a deity who was born on December 25th, and there's a virgin mother and walked on water and all this kind of thing. And these people, their jaws drop. It's like, wait a minute, how could that be?
So all of these religious figures repeat the same paradigm that's been started long ago, but keeps on being repeated to willing believers.
Exactly, but it certainly waters down the fundamentalists, because the fundamentalists want to believe that there's something very fundamentally special about their religion, and that they have to do exactly that thing.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, we're
taking religion away from us now.
We're taking religion away. So speaking of religion, there's one more thing in the very limited time we have left. And
2 minutes. You got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes. Okay. Is the New Deal? Okay, is in many ways what we're trying to promote. The idea that government can be a force for good. That paying
Who's we?
Progressives. The idea that there are public interests that we're all working for together, and that there are basic services that are a right and not a privilege. However, there was one part of the New Deal that was kind of destructive, and that was the whole creating jobs religion. And that comes back to this overconsumption and overwork vicious cycle. And here is another book, which is...
hold that up nice and bright and high.
The Politics of Simple Living by Charles Siegel. And this one may be a little harder to find, but you can Google that and you can find online. And I've actually...
The Politics of Simple Living.
I've ordered a case of these, so if you contact me...
Is that something like Thoreau? Is this guy... I mean, this doesn't look like a Thoreau... inspired.
No. This is all about these 90% issues and strategies. This is
that has the language.
This has a lot of it. The strategies. Right. It's
now
brilliant.
Before you go any further, I've got to thank you very much, because you slipped into our minds in all our innocence a lot of different ideas and made us open to new strategies and ideas. So I wasn't sure about you when I saw you this morning, and the way you started thinking and talking, that you slipped through and gave us some new ideas and new inspiration and new things to try out. And I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank our crew, Juanita and Charles and Alex.